So I just finished my fight companion for this card, and oh my god, Jared Cannonier is back. I was really thinking that this was not going to be a good night for him. I was expecting Cannonier fans around the world to be in tears, not rejoicing, but we are here rejoicing. Not to say that I am someone who is against the Cannonier, but neither am I for Cannonier. I love him, but I didn't predict him to win. Let's just say it that way. So Jared Cannonier comes out in the first round. Gregory Rodriguez puts a pace on him and a beating. Now, I didn't think anything about this in this manner at first, but I have heard since opinions from other people. A lot of people apparently were thinking about this being a 10-8 round. That may have been the truth. Judges may have scored it that way. I haven't looked at the scorecards, but I didn't even consider it like that at first. But in retrospect, I can see where they're coming from, especially with how the latter rounds looked. That was a very heavy-handed round and approach from Gregory Rodriguez early on in the fight. He dropped Cannonier twice in the round. They were not heavy knockdowns, I will say that, and I would like to give Cannonier props because in my fight companion, as I was watching it, I said I'm predicting Gregory to win, and then once that first round started, I changed my prediction from a round 3 or 4 finish. I went, oh, he might get him in the first round here, or at least in the second round. I'm fucking quite worried for Jared Cannonier here. And I wanted to rest on my laurels and stay with the prediction I had, but I switched up a little bit and decided I think this might end this round or next round, but it didn't. And after that first round, after Jared Cannonier survived the storm, goes on to the second round, Gregory Rodriguez slows right down. A lot of people were saying, whether it was the commentary or people online or the Twitter things that pop up in the corner of the screen during the fight, people were saying he's gassing out, he's running out of energy, he used everything up in that first round, and while I had considered that, I wasn't really thinking that was how it was going. That was just something in the back of my mind, but I had and said as soon as he came out a bit slower, I said he's probably going to need a round like this. Like if he's expecting to go 5 rounds, he probably at the very least, if he's not going to take a round to rest, he needs to take a round to see what it's going to be like when he lets Cannonier lead. Because maybe then he could have learnt that, okay, Cannonier is going to come on hard and fast at me if I let him lead. That tells me I cannot gas out because he will fucking go full force on me and I will not be able to survive it. But if that was the case and that was what he was hoping to learn, he would have found out that that's not actually the case. And Cannonier, while he did increase his aggressiveness and he started to control the fight and control the direction that we're walking in, he had Robocop moving backwards all the time. I feel like even if Robocop was to gas out in the later rounds, if that round 2 Cannonier was the Cannonier that we'd see trying to pressure him later in the rounds, I think Robocop could certainly survive that, even if he had gassed out. So either way, Robocop used that second round to try and gauge that, and to gauge himself. And evidently, at the start of the third round, it was clear that, okay, he did take that round as a break and a little bit of a gauge to kind of figure out how he wanted to play the rest of the fight. Cannonier didn't get anything too crazy off on him in that second round, but he did win it. Cannonier certainly won it with activity and whatnot. But going into the third round, Robocop picks up the pace. He starts to walk Jared down again. He's got his hands a lot lower. He looks a lot more tired and more heavy on his feet and stuff like that. But he is still controlling. And there's a difference between looking gassed and looking like you know how to fight tired. And I think to a degree, maybe not to the fullest extent, but to some degree, Gregory Rodriguez clearly knows how to fight tired, or how to become tired in a fight and rejuvenate yourself in a round where you just take a bit of a break. So he's walking Jared down in that round, and it comes down to about 60 seconds left in the round, and he has arguably won the entire round in my opinion. I don't really see how you could score that round for Cannonier before that, and even arguably, I'll get to it in a moment, what we're about to talk about, I wouldn't even be that mad that people wouldn't give the round to Cannonier based on the end of the round. I did, and I believe the judges would have, because judges really value end of round moments. It'd be pretty tough to give it to Robocop, but I would argue that ending sequence of the round only really evens out the round. because Cannonier essentially lost 4 minutes of that round, and then he won the last 45 seconds or whatever it was, 30 seconds. There was moments, he had okay moments in the third round. It's not like he was being attacked. Oh, sorry guys. It's not like he was being attacked and walked down and stalked the entire round the way he was in the first round, but he was not in control the way he was in the second, and he was not dealing with the output the same way he was in the second. Even though Gregory's output went down a lot, there was still a level of capability to control the fight from Cannonier, even when Gregory would have his bursts of energy and shoot a couple of combinations and stuff like that. Cannonier still controlled everything. There was a lot less of that in the third round, but there was still shades of it. So while he didn't really give anything in the third round that would make you think he won the round, he didn't make as much of an inverse between rounds 2 and 3 compared to the inverse that Robocop made between rounds 1 and 2. So that was a complete switch from Robocop. Completely changed up the game, slowed right the fuck down, let the other guy control the fight almost entirely. But between rounds 2 and 3 of Cannonier, he went from controlling it in the second round to not necessarily giving away the round in the third round, but certainly just playing it safer. And being like, okay, he's being more aggressive this round. I'm going to still try and have my moments. I'm going to try and back him up at times. I'm going to throw combinations at him and stuff, but let's not get dropped again like we did in the first round. That kind of game plan. And then the last 30 seconds comes. Jared Cannonier gets up real close. They get in the clinch, and he lands a beautiful elbow straight on the nose of Gregory Rodriguez. I don't know if it broke his nose, but he was already cut on the cheek, and then he began to bleed from his cheek and nose. I'm not sure whether it was smeared blood or whatever, but he was opened up after that. The elbow drops him, and it was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe Jared landed that elbow at the exact same time as Gregory either tried to do something with a knee. I'm not specifically sure what it was, but Rodriguez was on one leg because he had lifted up his other knee to throw a body shot to the knee, a knee to the body or something like that, whatever it was. So he was only on one leg when he got hit with that elbow. So he was already quite off balance, but I believe that wouldn't have been the defining factor in the knockdown. I feel like he still would have been knocked down by that elbow, but I think it's worth noting that he was obviously on one leg, and maybe he would have been hurt by the elbow but not knocked down, or maybe the other way around. Maybe he would have been knocked down but he would have been able to withstand the impact more. Who knows? But I feel like that played a small factor into it. But anyway, once we get down to the mat, that's when Cannonier just starts laying onto him in ground and pound, and Robocop survives it. He kind of eats a lot of shots, but the referee can obviously tell the clackers have gone. There's only 10 seconds left by the time Jared's on top of him. And Robocop's just kind of defensively being sound, trying to push him off, as well as block a lot of shots coming in. He blocks some, eats a few others, and then the round ends. Jared Cannonier gets up, and we didn't know this until the post-fight interview when he explained it. But Cannonier got up and thought the fight had ended. He thought that the referee had stepped in to say, that's a stoppage, that's a TKO, the fight's over. So Cannonier gets up and goes, why is nobody cheering? Why is everybody just silent? Why was it really that bad of a finish? Am I that boring? And then they came over and told him that was the end of the round, bro. You've got to keep fighting. And he's like, oh, okay. So, fourth round comes around, and I believe that Cannonier, especially because he thought the fight was over, right? That should give us a bit of insight into the fighters can tell what the other guy feels like and how he is acting, and what his, maybe not exactly what their mental state is, but watching from a camera, we have an idea of what's going on in the fight. But I believe that the other fighter that's in there with them can tell a lot about that guy's current state of affairs, like how they're feeling in that moment. And I reckon, as much as we could tell that Robocop was hurt in that last 30 seconds of that round, I think Cannonier could tell that he was essentially done, because he thought the fight was over and he thought it was a stoppage. Now, that could have been exclusively just because the ref stepped in and he assumed that was what the ref was doing. But it's a bit of a mix of the two, right? Like, he made that assumption because he was in a finishing sequence of ground and pound on top of Robocop. So when they told him the round was over, the fight's not over, he probably goes, oh, okay, let me capitalize on that damage that I am very, very well aware I did to him in the last 30 seconds of that round. So it comes into the start of the fourth, and Cannonier just fucking goes balls to the wall. Like immediately comes out swinging at RoboCop, and within about 10 seconds clips him with something hard, and RoboCop backs way up to the fence. And then he gets clipped a couple more times, tries to circle out, and one more big punch straight on the fucking face of RoboCop connects from Cannonier, and it drops him down to his knees. And when he's down on his knees, he's looking at the mat, both hands down on the mat, and Cannonier lands a couple more ground and pound shots, and the referee steps in. Now, the finish may be seen by some people as a little bit more boring. I did think it was kind of surprising. My reaction was, I believe, silence. Like I literally went, oh, he's dropped down, oh my god, it's over. Okay, that came out of fucking nowhere. I thought RoboCop was going to survive and maybe come back in this round. But clearly, as I just said, I think he was more hurt than we thought from the end of that third round. So, Cannonier was able to capitalize on that, and he did it well. Referee stepped in 21 seconds into the fourth round, and Jared Cannonier proves his veteran status to still be useful and worthy, and he is, while I think he is done technically, he's not done, so it's impressive for him to have been able to survive the damage and the power and output of a guy as strong as Rodriguez. He's probably one of the strongest unranked guys. If we want to think about unranked prospects that are a problem and that we're worried about, and that finishing guys a lot in prelims and main and apex events and stuff like that, it's RoboCop. I even remember after his last fight, between now and his last fight, RoboCop's been a guy that a lot of people have considered to be the number 15 rank. When UFC pushes someone up into the rankings that didn't fight a ranked opponent, but they just bop into the number 15 spot. Shara Bullet had it happen when he fought, I think it was Michael Oleksiejczuk or Antonio Tricoli, whichever one of those came latest. He beat that guy, and they bumped him into the number 15 spot. So after that, oh no, it was Arman Petrosian. Sorry, it was after he knocked out Arman Petrosian. Yeah, at UFC 308. After that, they bumped him into the number 15 spot, even though he didn't fight a ranked guy. And currently, Bo Nickel has now been bumped into the number 15 or 14 spot of the rankings. He never fought a ranked opponent. Paul Craig was not ranked as far as I'm aware anymore, but he got put in the rankings. So it happens every now and then, and I feel like a lot of people were considering RoboCop to be that guy that was, even though Shara got picked and now Bo Nickel's been picked, a lot of people were thinking, I feel like RoboCop's the guy that you should be bopping into the rankings at the bottom level there, just based off of unranked fights, because he had a lot of unranked wins, a lot of finishes against guys that are not the worst in the division, guys that have good wins otherwise. And his only loss is to Bruno Ferreira, who is a brutal finisher, and that's not a bad guy to have a loss to, especially if it's by finish, for sure. And it was in first rounds, as all of Bruno Ferreira's finishes are, as far as I'm aware. So, as far as what comes next, Gregory Rodriguez, I'm not sure. You probably do just give him more unranked fights, obviously, but he just fought number 7. They gave him a really big hike up to number 7 Cannonier, because Cannonier had fought a lot of high-level guys, hadn't had to fight way down the rankings in a while, besides Baralho, who he lost to. So he fought down the rankings and lost brutally to that guy. So they're like, okay, now you got to fight out of the rankings at this point. We're not going to just pull you down to number 12 or something. That makes no sense. You've beat a lot of people besides the top of the ranks, but you are on a bit of a losing streak right now. We got to give you someone that's really fresh to the pool, and give someone a chance at your number that you're kind of holding on to, even with a lot of losses. And that was Gregory Rodriguez. I feel like maybe someone like a Joe Pyfer or something. Pyfer's fighting Gastelum, so maybe the winner of Pyfer versus Gastelum versus Gregory Rodriguez or something like that's fun. I'm not sure. There's probably better fights to make. But one thing I am sure about is what's next for Jared Cannonier. Now, Jared has 4 losses in the middleweight division. All 4 of those losses are ranked above him right now. He's ranked at number 7. So aside from the champion, Dricus, who he hasn't fought, out of the top 6, he's lost to 4 of them. And that is, he's also beat 1, I will point out, but that is Strickland, and it was a split decision who people arguably think he lost. So it doesn't really matter whether it's a win or loss in that regard, because people think it's a kind of an indifferent fight. And Strickland didn't want to fight Cannonier in the first place. After they fought, Strickland said he doesn't want to fight him again, for sure. Number 1, Nazardine Imavov. Just lost to him last year. Okay. Number 2, Strickland. Just explain the situation of that one. Number 3, Hamza. Hasn't fought him, but is due for a title shot. Number 4 is Izzy right now. I believe, who he's lost to, and it was a boring fight. No one needs to see that rematch. Number 5 is Whittaker, and that was his longest ago loss of the 4 guys that have beat him in the middleweight division. That was in 2020. So if there's going to be anyone you give Jared Cannonier a rematch against, out of the top guy, because you can't give him the only 2 guys that he hasn't lost to. You can't give him Strickland because there's no point, and they won't accept the fight. And you can't give him Hamzat because Hamzat's got a title shot coming up. So of all those other 4 people that are there, who he has lost to above him, there's no point doing Imavov. There's no point doing Izzy. You could do the Whittaker rematch eventually. Maybe not in the next fight, but maybe one fight removed for each guy. I could see that rematch coming around. If Cannonier is still fighting, again, he's almost 41. I'm not sure. But below that is Kayo at number 6. And that was arguably his most brutal. It was his most brutal loss. So he's not going to get that rematch. And also, it was the last fight, most recent, just happened. And Baralho is arguably due for a number 1 contender fight. So none of those fights make any sense besides Whittaker, but not yet. So the fight I do think makes the most sense, because he really, even though he just beat a completely unranked guy at number 7, he doesn't deserve to fight up the rankings again yet. I think this weekend we have Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez at UFC Seattle. I believe that the winner of that should fight Jared Cannonier next. I think that's a good matchup. Brendan Allen's coming off a loss to Imavov. Anthony Hernandez just had that really good win against Michel Pereira. If he gets a good performance against Brendan Allen, he's going to deserve another jump up the rankings. I think Allen is either 1 spot or 2 spots below Cannonier right now. And Hernandez, while maybe people would argue that he deserves another jump up if he has a dominant performance, the middleweight division is a really tough one right now. There's a lot of fucking title contention going on in that top 5, 6, 7. So you can't really justify Anthony Hernandez getting some crazy fight like that until someone's coming off of like a really clear loss. I don't think Izzy's going to want to fight someone like that, nor Strickland. So it's a bit of a tough one. Maybe Whittaker versus Hernandez and Allen's winner is a possible matchup, but I think it's unlikely. Whittaker's probably going to stay in that top 5 still with his next fight, and a rematch with anyone up there, maybe whoever he's fought, is probably more justified. But Cannonier needs to fight down again, but not that far down. So I think that whoever wins out of Anthony Hernandez versus Brendan Allen will be ranked at it's either 8 or 9, and Cannonier is number 7. So I think after that fight this weekend, the winner of that fights Cannonier. They do that fight, and the winner of that can likely get a fight with either a Robert Whittaker if he's coming off of another loss after his next fight. Maybe an Adesanya if Adesanya's lost another fight since then, but I doubt it. I think if Adesanya will either 1, win his next fight, or 2, retire if he loses, or 3, if he sticks around, won't want to fight someone like a Brendan Allen or a Jared Cannonier again. No one wants to really see that fight. Maybe a Hernandez, but I'm not sure. It's a bit of an iffy one there. You've got Hamzat coming off a loss. If Hamzat is to lose his title shot, I could see them doing a Cannonier, Allen, and Hernandez winner versus Hamzat. That's very possible, but they probably want Hamzat for big names in the division, not necessarily just a guy that deserves a top-level fight. Then you've got Imavov. If Imavov is to lose his title shot, then maybe, but if it's Cannonier, they've already fought, and it was brutal and recent, kind of unnecessary, and weird to make Imavov fight someone again when he's just 2 fights removed after beating Allen and then Izzy. If he loses his next fight, it's a little bit ago, but it's not that long ago that he fought Cannonier. So it's an interesting one, but I definitely think Cannonier versus the winner of Hernandez and Brendan Allen is a great matchup. And it's a bit of a grappler-striker matchup. We haven't really seen Cannonier have to fight any grapplers recently. Kayo's got some good grappling, he didn't really use it though. Marvin Vettori's a bit of a grappler, but he didn't use it at all when he got brutalized. So I think this is a good matchup to put Cannonier into next. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, chuck a notification so you don't miss any uploads or live streams. You'll be notified half an hour before the live stream starts and when the live stream starts so that you don't miss it. And thank you guys for being here. So I'll see you guys all in the next Mixed Martial Arts video.